Hey, it's me, John Beckerman, and you are watching the Letterman podcast with Mike Chisholm. And coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. That's your bit, right? That's your bit.
That's my bit.
I'm doing your bit.
Thank you, buddy.
La, 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 la.
Welcome once again to the Letterman podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. All right. If you have listened to or watched this show with any degree of regularity, first off, what is wrong with you? Second off, you know that I love stand-up. I've done it a couple of times to get the discipline kind of, familiar with the discipline. I very much enjoy stand-up a lot, but I love the mechanics of stand-up and going through it. So, and then of course, this show, we love to talk to folks who worked for the production at some point in the timeline, or one of the productions of Pants somewhere along the timeline. Today's guest is both. He is a stand-up that was a page for Late Show with David Letterman during a time where I considered to be one of the greatest times of David Letterman's career. Obviously, there's a lot of the late night stuff, the early stuff with Late Show after the big move happened, all of that stuff. I mean, the Carter Bays, Craig Thomas years, phenomenal years there, of course, as well. And then the last 6 weeks of Letterman were amazing. But to me, this period between 2009 and 2011, there's this period that is so special, and it is precious to me. It really is. This was the time when the Conan O'Brien when Late Shift 2 happened, and that was part of it. And there were just a few different moments that happened in that time that I just found so special. Eric Schmidt is a stand-up comedian. Really. You'll hear it and see it when he appears on the show. Extremely charismatic, extremely smart, extremely funny guy. He was a page during those times that I was talking about, and he and I have a fantastic conversation reminiscing about. We talk about stand-up. We talk about his take on stand-up and how he got into the business. But of course, a lot of stories about his time there. We bond over a lot of the music. If you've watched the show, you know that I'm a huge fan of the musical component of Late Show and Late Night, and we have a really fun conversation that goes through all of these things. He has a podcast himself, Talking Schmidt, SCHMIDT. So you can find him at Talking Schmidt, and you can find him online. Also does a comedy show once a month in the Northeast, and we talk about that as well, called Live Snakes. This is, again, just standard. Have so much fun doing this show. I think it translates that these conversations are reciprocal fun. And that's what today is all about. Please enjoy my conversation with Eric Schmidt. All right, Eric, I'm very excited to have you on here. I'm a huge stand-up fan. And whenever I can get somebody who has combined stand-up and Letterman somehow, whether they appeared on the show, worked for the show, anything like that, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on here. I know you grew up in Florida. Did you always know you wanted to be a stand-up?
No, actually, I always loved stand-up, and I grew up watching Letterman, obviously, but like when I moved to New York and was just around stand-up so much, I was like, you know what, I'd probably be a fool to not at least try.
Yeah.
Just because also working at Letterman and then working in entertainment after that, I just had so many good connections. I just would have felt foolish not. And I always wrote jokes actually before. Like I probably started writing stand-up style jokes 5 years before I ever did stand-up.
Oh,
yeah.
You're kidding.
So which is good because you want to have a lot of material to pull from.
Yep.
So like coming up with the first set that I ever did at an open mic was not, wasn't difficult to put together. So, I mean, I still do some of the jokes that I did on the first mic I ever did back in like 2015. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so that was actually one of my next questions. First time you did stand up was in 2015.
Yeah. I had done sketch videos. I followed like the typical arc, do some improv, then do sketch, and then, you work your way up to being, confident enough to try it by yourself on a stage with everything that you wrote. So yeah, it was a great time to start, actually. I really just like there was a great community that I started with and everything. It was really nice.
I assume that you started in a room in New York. What room? What was your first first experience?
So some friends of mine, also former pages, they had a mic at this place called Stairs Bar, which was a gay bar, like nightclub, where they did stand up like during the day, the daytime hours before it became like a big club
Yep.
scene.
Yep.
But yeah, unfortunately, Stairs Bar is no longer around, but it was a great spot. So many comics I know started out, doing those mics and are now having pretty good little stand-up careers. So yeah, it was a great spot to start.
You got a bit of a net doing the day crowd at a gay bar. You got a bit of a net there. It's you got the high wire, but if you fall, nothing catastrophic there. Just good to get a feel for it and whatnot. Did you take to
Oh,
it
yeah.
like a duck to water? Like immediately, like, oh yes, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, like I really enjoyed it from the get-go, and luckily had pretty good, experience and feedback. Never, I've to this day, never really had like a set totally bomb. Obviously, you've got jokes that just don't work all the time.
Yep. Yeah, you're
So
working stuff out, obviously.
yeah, yeah. Or you'll have ones that like work with certain audiences and don't with others. I was just talking to another comic about this the other day, actually. Open mics are kind of tougher than shows because you end up performing for people who are just worried about their own thing that they're about to go up on stage and said. So it's not like an audience who has come and they came with the intention of seeing something funny and laughing. So they're really yours to lose in a show respect. But at open mics, it's a little bit tougher of an audience.
Yeah, that makes absolutely. And did you go through the phase, or are you still in the phase where you're trying to bring the audience with you every week? You're trying, hey, bring a couple friends. Yeah, you can get a spot, but make sure you bring a couple people to the club. Is that part of, or in New York, the New York comedy scene too? I mean, you walk through Times Square, you walk through some of the populated areas, and you see, comics out there grinding it out, trying to get people to come into the club for that night. Has that been part of your world at all?
No, I've kind of avoided the having to, recruit audience that way, the Midtown club way. I
Yeah.
produced a show out in Williamsburg, and it's at the Gutter in Williamsburg, which has kind of become like the spot for stand up for independently booked stand up. Like people are recording their specials there. So I'm very lucky in that, like, I get to perform at rooms like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the audiences in Williamsburg are great. They're a little, I don't do a lot of like, I'm not an edgy comedian. I mean, like I do jokes about drugs and things, but like I'm not trying to offend. Like my goal is not to offend
You're not
anyone.
pushing any envelopes.
No, no. So, but like, I think some comics who do like to be edgier, might find a Williamsburg or Greenpoint audience to be a little, tight with their laughter. But, I've always had a good experience. So,
That's the Good For You show.
so Good For You was a show I produced with another former page, Ian Hunt, who's an amazing stand-up comedian himself. He also runs, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, but he runs the Power of Self-Care Instagram account, which is very popular on Instagram, and I love. But anyway, so he and I produced a show called Good For You for a decade, from 2013 to 2023.
Yeah.
It was at this wonderful place in Williamsburg called Cantina Royale,
Yeah.
which had to close due to the pandemic. But the guy that owns it is this guy named Julio, and he makes these hot sauces now that are always featured on Hot Ones. Very popular hot sauce. Yeah, they're always
Fantastic.
yeah. So anyway, we did the show there, and then they closed, and then we did it at a few other venues, and then we were like, you know what, it's not really the same as it was. Like, so the venue was such a part of the identity of the show.
The alchemy was necessary for the chemistry of
Yeah.
what you were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and Julio was nuts, man. Like, he would let us like use one of his like delivery guy's scooters to ride up on stage to start the show. Like, it was just silliness and totally illegal, a lot of the things we were doing. So, but yeah, that was part of the magic of it. And so we decided to just kind of retire that brand and that show. And then in 20 or the last year, I really wanted to do a live stand-up show again.
Yep.
Produce one, and I asked Ian if he wanted to do it again. He was like, no. And I was like, that's
Been there,
fair.
done that.
Yeah, no hard feelings there. But but I produced with some great fellow comics, and actually one of them was a late. Have you had Kevin McCaffrey on?
I
Yeah.
haven't yet. I would
Oh,
love
okay.
to have Kevin on.
Yeah, so I produced it with Kevin. Actually, so the one in February that I'm hosting, February 27th, I'm hosting that one. Kevin's going to be on it. And he's another old Letterman guy.
Hmm.
He did a set on Letterman.
Yep.
Was he a page? He an intern. He had a bunch of jobs there. So like he's an old Letterman chum for sure. And so he's going to be on that show on the 27th. So that'll be a fun one at the
That's
Gutter.
fantastic.
Oh, and sorry, I completely forgot to say the name of the show.
Yeah, no. I want that. We're going there next. I want to talk more about this because it's such a smart way. I look at the stand-up scene in my city. My city is a city called Kelowna, which is about 3 hours east of Vancouver. Now,
Yeah.
Vancouver, of course, has got a big comedy scene and lots of stuff moving and shaking all the time. And you get these smaller areas that develop these stand-up scenes. And to me, some of my friends locally are the ones who produce these shows. And it's such a great way to get in and learn the whole experience of getting into stand-up.
Yeah.
Also, because you're also solidifying yourself a place where you get to go work out, and
Yeah.
and producing a show is such a great way to get into it that way. What's the name of the new show, and how can people find it?
It's called Live Snakes, which, yeah, right. Our friend and comedian Mia Faith Hammond, she's the one that came up with the name, and we voted on it, and it initially lost, and then
What
we
did it
were,
lose to?
I forget, nothing
Okay,
good.
all right.
Yeah, and then we were like, we decided to have a revote, and no one voted for it either. And we were like, you know what, that Live Snakes one, we all just kind of were like, that one has like just better marketing. I feel like the stickers you can make, the sign you can make
Yeah.
for it, like it's a much more fun name. So we revoted and then it won unanimously. So which is good because it's a way better name than whatever we had planned.
Is it Live Snakes Comedy or just Live Snakes?
Just Live Snakes. So on Instagram, I think it's Live Snakes Comedy. That's like the name of the Instagram account.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we it's just, and like I said, it's at the Gutter, which is a great venue, and the first year, so February will be the 1 year anniversary. The first year we did it on the last Thursday of the month, but we didn't really think that through because like at the end of the year you've got Thanksgiving,
Oh yeah.
Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's like a 3 month like, oh shit, we got to reschedule it. We can't. So like starting in March, we'll be on the first Thursday of the month, and then we won't have any like holiday issues from that. But yeah, so it's been a fun show. I produce it with a few other comics, and so we alternate hosts and everything. And so Kevin's one of them, and yeah, he's on the February one. So should be a good time.
That's fantastic. Who are some of the stand-ups that you love, that you draw maybe influence from, or are you one of those stand-ups that you got to be real careful of how much stand-up you consume? I know a lot of stand-ups who are careful about that because they don't want it to affect their process either. Right. And so I mean, there's a couple of schools of thought to that.
Yeah, I try to. I mean, like growing up, I loved Letterman, who's not like did stand up before he had the Late Show, obviously, and late night. And then I would say George Carlin was a guy I grew up watching a lot of. And then more recently, Bill Burr, I really love. Chris Rock, Chappelle, whatever he's doing now, as far as material.
Well, he's the guy that's intentionally kind of pushing the envelope, or and exploring around there. What he's
started
doing
kind of weird trans focused TED Talks. You're just like, what is this even?
Yeah.
But he's one of the best though, still, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like my approach to that is kind of like, if someone's telling you ahead of time before they've even told a joke that like I'm edgy, or the alternative too, like if they're like I'm like super progressive and going to try to like get you on board with that, it's like I just do your material and like I'll either relate to it or I won't. Like if you're coming out like very like focused on that, I feel like that's, I don't know, not for me anyway.
It makes, I mean, there's so many there's so many ways that you can approach it, just like there's any art form, and like music, I mean, there's so many different sub genres and subgenres within music. Stand up, I feel, is exactly the same. It just doesn't get focused, categorized the same way. I mean, obviously, you know, like I love comedians in cars getting coffee as a an artifact of all of these stand-ups that explain their process a little bit. Norm Macdonald is a guy
Norm,
that
my God, yeah, Norm definitely a Mount Rushmore, for me.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, here's a guy who on his episode of comedians in cars, I mean, he looks at Jerry and says, okay, well, clean comedy is the superior form. He talks about that. And I mean, you think about Norm. I remember the first time seeing him live because I'm Canadian, and he would tour to small towns in Canada, and he played our community theater, and I remember um, going from the Saturday Night Live Norm that I knew, and the of course, the Letterman appearances of
Yeah,
Norm, and then seeing him on stage, and you're like, whoa, okay, there is a, because you have these hunks that are TV friendly, and this
yeah,
body of work that's TV friendly, and then you go and see what he does. And I don't think he was necessarily trying to push the envelope. I just think he just didn't put limits on himself. You've got some comedians who are totally agenda-based comedians who are,
yeah,
trying to, whether it's manufactured or it's something that's just boiling up from them inside, trying to push some sort of a greater message of some kind. And I think you got some people who just want to test the limits and just to
yeah.
see and to say, you know what, okay, freedom of speech. Let's see if we have freedom of speech here too as well. So I mean,
Right.
there's so many ways to skin the cat. Sounds to me like you just want to go up there and have a good time and get some laughs going, and sounds like that's just you just the
That's
simple
it.
version of things.
Yeah, I don't like, I know people who write with the intention of offending, and
Yeah,
that just seems misguided to me. It seems like if you just write everything, like I write things that I would never say on stage, but it's
sure.
important, you have to write everything, and then
Yeah,
you can be like, all right, this fits with the kind of person I am as a stand-up. This can work for me. Or you find out, okay, that one doesn't work for me. But you write it all, write everything,
yep.
and then you can figure out where you want to go with it. Is my
Yeah.
approach.
I want to come back to this, and because again, I love stand up. I love the process of it and feeling everybody out as to how they do things and get to things. But I do want to bring in the Letterman part of it. You had been in entertainment before you started being working for Dave and company, or
No,
was that the gateway that brought you into
yeah,
entertainment?
yeah, that was the gateway. So like, it's kind of funny. I moved to New York, and my wife already lived here, and she went to law school here, and I moved here, and I was just trying to find any job,
Mhm.
whatever. And my mom called and was like, "Hey, your cousin's husband knows a guy who worked there would as a page. Is that something?" And I was like, "What the fuck? Yes, like Jesus, yeah, what? Yes,
Do you
yeah."
remember who it was?
Yeah, this guy Tom. Man, what was Tom's last name? I never actually even met him, the guy.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
I know my cousin's name, but
No, no,
yeah,
no, the
yeah,
guy
yeah,
who it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so like, and he was a page, and I think he got to be like an audience coordinator too, like,
Yeah.
which is rare, like, because they only have like 8 of those, and so like your timing has to be perfect with someone leaving and you just being like an exceptional page.
Yep.
So anyway, so yeah, like I got in touch with him, and like he helped me get an interview, and man, it was like I feel like at that time there were people getting page jobs that were just like finding it on like Craigslist,
Yeah.
who had no idea like what, because it was kind of vague, it didn't say that it was Letterman. It would
Yep.
just be like CBS show, blah blah blah. And so some people ended up as pages who were like, I didn't know what this was going to be. I never watched Letterman. I don't know what's going on here.
Oh
Uh,
God, the people,
yeah,
the legion of people who are hearing that going, like,
I know.
oh, out of frustration.
Oh, whereas I'm like, so I was like, I can't believe I'm in the building. I'm like sneaking, taking pictures in like the lobby, like where it says Worldwide Pants behind the thing. I'm like, this is amazing. But yeah, I was so into it. I was, because I was I was a super fan. Like my parents let me watch when I was a little kid. I was in like, I don't know, I was probably in second grade. I remember the old show. I like
Yeah.
my parents were letting me stay up till 12:30 at night to watch when it was on the old, the old time on NBC.
Hmm.
But yeah, I remember like watching just as a kid. I mean, I have it right here. I had this top 10 book.
Yep.
Do you have one? You got this one?
We've
It's
got the
great.
second one. It's in behind it's in
Yeah,
behind the
yeah.
yearbook here. I got the second one on the set here, and then yeah, that one's upstairs,
Yeah.
dog-eared, just like yours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like I mean, I would get in trouble at school in like third grade for bringing that in,
Hmm.
so I've been a super fan like my whole life, and and man, what a dream come true to be able to work there. But yeah, the Page program is just it's a great opportunity. It's just a year-long program.
Yeah.
Uh, it's shorter if you're not good at it. I got to do the full year. I got to do the full year though.
You made the year.
Yeah, I made the year. I
Janice
only
didn't cut you.
no, 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 no. I got to do the full year. But yeah, there was not really an opportunity to stay once I was done. No one was leaving those jobs. I think even in 2010, 11, I feel like, the people that had those jobs were like, I'm not sure how much longer this is going to go. So I think I want to ride this out.
Yep.
I don't think any of the audience coordinators left in that time period, like after, 2010. So, but it was, great opportunity to get to know a little bit of the business and, make some really good connections. I mean, I'm still like best friends with so many of the people that were pages and worked there. It was, just such a wonderful time.
Yeah, talking to Janice has been on this show, but I've talked to her a couple of times, at length, and I mean, I love the way she looks at the pages. I can't get Janice to actually say to somebody to tell me, okay, of the interns and the pages and all of that. There are some, like you look at a guy like Brian Teta, he started as an intern and now he's executive producing The View,
Yeah.
but I say to her, give me some of the stories of some of these people that you're proud of, and she won't do it. She's like, no, they're like my kids. I will not
Yeah.
pull one out over the other ones. It was a really meticulously taken care of program.
Yeah.
And I love that. Worldwide Pants is a family,
Yeah.
in so many respects. And hearing you and your vantage point about it, you're certainly solidifying that perspective.
Oh,
What years were you there again? You were there 2010 to 2012?
no, sorry. I was there 2000 October 2009 to October 2010. I
Okay.
started I started right after the scandal where the guy tried to like blackmail
The
him.
blackmail scandal. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, interesting time to be watching the like sexual harassment video as the, intro for the
That was
for
right
the
around the time you started?
yeah, I mean that was October '09. Yeah.
God,
I
that must have been
just
weird.
missed my
Were you in
part.
the room? Were you in the room that night?
No, no, no. So like that was right before. That was
Okay.
like a week before I started. I was just like, "Oh my God." Like, it was while I was in the process of lining up the interview. But yeah, I was like, "Man, what an interesting time to start." But then also while I was there was when the whole Tonight Show,
Late
Conan.
shift too. That was,
Yeah, yeah,
yep.
exactly. Yeah, that was an interesting time to be there. I was in I was in the studio when he had Conan on that for that episode where they just kind of, I mean, Letterman was so delighted by everyone hating Leno again. It was
I
really,
I've talked a lot about that on this show here. People
yeah,
always ask me when my favorite Letterman incarnation was, and I mean, there's people who watch the show that say we don't focus enough on late night, and we focus too much on late show, and I mean, there's logistical reasons for that. I loved late night, of course, I love late night, but my
sure.
favorite of Dave's entire run, if I had to boil it down to any particular time, it was that time in 2009, 2010 when all the turmoil at NBC was going on,
Oh,
and it was almost like catharsis for Dave coming out every single night and talking to some of the writers where there were prepared comedy pieces sitting right beside him, and he
yeah.
just would throw it away and say, no, 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 let's talk about
Oh,
NBC some
yeah,
more.
I'm too delighted. Yeah, what a magical time. I mean, he was crushing them in the ratings at that
Yep.
time,
Yep.
which hadn't happened in a while. So yeah, it was just, man, that was fun. We were like, let's put on our late show page jackets and go to like the Rainbow Room, which I think was still open at that time at NBC as like a bullying thing to do.
That must
But
have been so much fun.
Oh man, it was a blast. It was a total blast. I mean, I love Conan too, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, strong second place favorite of the late night guys. So yeah, that was a special time. I was also there when he did that was when the
Was that the Super Bowl commercial? Is that what you
Super
about
Bowl
to say?
commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
It was there.
like I remember I think one of the security guys who maybe wasn't as in the know about what was going on was like, I saw Leno go in the other day because they taped it at Ed Sullivan Theater. Like, I
They
think.
sure did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they're like, I saw Leno go in the other day. And so we were like, what? And then that commercial came on. We were like, oh, well, that's what that was. Okay. I guess they taped it there.
This is cool. This is the first time on this show. We've talked a lot about that as well. This is the first time that the idea that there were people who knew about it had gotten out, because they did a very good job of keeping that secret.
Yeah.
Like when that commercial, when that Super Bowl commercial happened, the scuttlebutt is then President Obama was
Yeah.
sitting there going, how'd they do that? And he like got them to make some calls to figure out like real time
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened that couldn't have been real, what happened there. Like that was a big deal when that happened.
Yeah.
And most people that I've talked to have said, oh yeah, it didn't get out, we kept the secret of it. There it is.
Yeah.
Some of the
Yeah.
people
Like,
knew.
they kept it secret to the point that like one of the security guys didn't know and was just like, I swear to God, I saw Leno go in the building the other day. And like, they were trying to sneak him in. I mean,
Sure.
I guess he missed Oprah walking by, but yeah, like they that was, and so like we kind of knew something was up, or not sure what. Like, I mean, kind of horrifying to find out like the man you've believed to be the enemy, public enemy number one, is like at Late Show somehow.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Why is he even in this city? Stay out of here, Jay. But yeah, somehow got in and they did that, and yeah, it was so fun. I was actually at another Page's Super Bowl party watching when that came on, and we were all like, "What the fuck?" It was a blast. Am I allowed to say fuck? I don't
Let's
know.
do it. Like, oh yeah, absolutely. The thing about that I love so much, and I mean, even Kimmel kind of nudged Dave a little bit when he made a subsequent appearance after that. He said, "Oh, I think he said something. You threw Jay a life preserver or something like that.
Yeah.
You threw him and the thing that I love about Dave is if the joke is strong enough or funny enough, he goes where the joke is.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I mean, of course, the other part is Conan was actually invited to that experience as well, and
Oh.
for obvious reasons declined
Well,
at the
that was
time.
before, wasn't it though? Like that was before.
No,
Uh,
it was after the fact.
was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I thought it was.
Conan was invited, and he said no.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So imagine though, like I mean, I would love to. That's actually a question that I have. I have aspirations to get Conan on here, and
Yeah.
one of the questions I do have for him is Kevin Smith's another one. Kevin Smith had the opportunity to be the subject of a top 10. And declined because during the time it was during a sensitive time for him. He had got thrown off a plane for being overweight, and
Oh, yeah.
so apparently the Letterman people called and said, "Hey, do you want to come on out here and we'll have you do a top 10?" That's a question I want to ask him. Do you regret not going out and doing that? Because he was a Letterman
Yeah.
fan. Same with Conan right now. With the benefit of hindsight, is that something that he would have done? It was such a big moment.
Yeah. And what the hell is going on with Leno now? He's getting beat up for owing people money. Have you guys?
Isn't that weird? It's
Yeah.
so it's if I would have ever in a million years, tried to predict Leno in his senior years, I would have predicted a car show. Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, but the idea of all these injuries and some of these crazy, conspiracy things that are being
So
thrown out there,
bizarre.
it's
Makes me wish
bonkers.
Letterman. Obviously, I assume you also wish Letterman still had a nightly show where.
Oh, I mean, the whole thing is it's like someone said, I forget who it was. It might have been Bill Carter. When Johnny Carson retired, he took the show with him.
Yeah.
And it became a different thing after that. I feel the same way with Dave, except he did the whole thing. He did that with the genre. I
Yeah.
think the genre is just, I think Kimmel is probably the closest kind of emulator in many respects. And some of the stuff on Kimmel, I love where Kimmel's at right now because he gives zero fucks right now. You
Yeah.
can tell,
I'm
respectfully, but yeah, I wish, of course, I love my next guest. I love watching Dave do the long form with people. You mentioned Chappelle. I think his episode with Chappelle might have been my favorite one. It was so good. But to be able to see Dave comment in real time to current events, I mean, God,
nothing
weekly.
beats that.
Oh, it'd be so great. It'd be so great to have him do that.
Like, and Jon Stewart coming back for just one night, even on Daily Show, has been so amazing. So
Yep.
I wish, I love Dave's channel though. His YouTube channel is great, and I don't know how the hell he's getting the rights to. Like, I mean, there's stuff from the NBC days. There's like he
Yeah,
fixes.
I think I can say this part. There is they've got a for the YouTube channel, they've got with Universal. I mean, obviously with NBC Universal, they've changed hands so many times, and so many of the executives and stuff have changed hands so many times that I don't know that there would still be any sort of, I mean, there's only a couple of people in that building that are still that were associated with late night,
Yeah.
and that back then, and there were people who worked for late night that worked for Seth Meyers. That Jay Johnson is one, and Wally Ferrison's another one, and there's not very many people. So to create some sort of a rev share
Yeah.
agreement or something like that between Pants and I don't think that is that difficult of a it's not nearly as big of a high wire as it would have been, say, even 15 years ago, kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah, well, I remember Conan was teasing that he was going to put everything from his show on there, and that it hasn't happened yet, as far as I know, right?
I certainly hope I believe that Dave needed to not get the Tonight Show to build his legacy that he built, because he basically took Johnny Carson's contract and walked across the street and continued it at CBS when he started Late Show. I also believe that Conan needed to have his moment where that happened, because I mean, you look at how big he is now. The Sirius XM deal that he did, Team Coco and his podcast network is just, it's fantastic. His travel show, for him to be able to have access to his body of work. I wish that they would release his Tonight Show run. I loved his Tonight Show run. I DVR'd it every night. I watched Letterman, but I watched Conan's Tonight Show as well. I thought he was fantastic in that.
It was great. Yeah, I would love nothing more than if they could put, like kind of how Letterman's doing it. That would be fantastic. But Conan's got a very popular podcast he's busy with, which is a fantastic one as well. So,
speaking of which, you're a podcaster as well.
yeah, I've been doing it since 2021 with a buddy of mine who is also a page. His name is Greg Burmeister. Yeah, we've had a podcast for a few years now, and
what's it called? Where can you find it?
Oh, it's called Talking Schmidt, and you can find it wherever you find podcasts.
Yep.
And we started out just having comics that we need, because we have quite extensive Rolodexes, Greg and I. So we were like, let's just have our funny friends on, and it's been a great time. But now we're kind of shifting towards just the two of us. Like we kept getting people being like, you know what, I really like the episodes where it's just the two of you guys. So we were like, all right, maybe we'll do that for a little bit. We're also in talks to start recording it at the studio at where we do Live Snakes, which is a cool venue. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
What's it called? The Gutter?
Yeah, the Gutter. Yeah,
the Gutter.
There's a few. Okay.
I haven't done one live yet. I want to. I've got a couple of ideas. I've got a couple like crazy big ideas. I got a couple pieces of very rare, never before seen, footage and documentaries and things like that were shot around late night or late show. I've got a couple of them, and I love the idea of maybe getting a guest like a Rob Burnett type guy,
Sure.
and we show something to the audience, and then we have a live podcast. I love this, what we're doing right now. It's so great. I literally, I feel like I'm in a flow state. Time is nothing when we do this. It's so great, this experience.
Yeah.
But then the live experience is so potent as well. And the idea of being able to do it with audience participation and reaction and maybe Q&A and things like that, that adds a dimension to it that makes it different. Not better or worse necessarily, but different. The live podcast. So you haven't done a live podcast yet?
In front of an audience, no. And I don't know that this one, like if we did it, if we started taping at the Gutter, I don't know
Yep.
that we would have an audience there for it.
Oh, you
Uh,
just changed the venue. You'd
yeah,
use
yeah,
it as a
yeah.
setting. I
They have like
gotcha.
nicer, it's a bigger space. I think it takes our podcast to the next level if we start recording it there, and they have like a fancier camera, that all that. But yeah, no, we have talked about doing like one where, you've got an audience for it. And then, yeah, I think you incorporate stand up into that. I think you have people that, have been guests that do stand up and they do a set and then you talk to them, that kind of thing. I've seen that format work pretty well. So yeah, that's
Well,
something.
it feels like I don't know if he invented that model, but it feels like he kind of did, because you look at Kevin Smith, and I mean, he has this extremely successful podcast. He also had this extremely successful, for lack of a better term, stand up, where he would go in front of audiences and tell stories from his adventures in film.
Yeah.
And he kind of took the two and merged the two. That he took his podcast on the road and some of these same bits that he did, and it's a genius way to figure out a way to make it in this world when it comes to, throwing your art out there. It's not easy for artists, and adding all these different dimensions, at least adds ways that people can do what they do. How many nights a week are you performing these days?
Oh, probably one or two, just
Yep.
one or two a week, I think. I was talking to another buddy of mine about, the process for stand up, and if a lot of comics, and we all kind of did this before the pandemic, where we would push ourselves to get up more often, to be on stage more often, and then you find that your writing really takes, you're not writing as much. And so I feel like after the pandemic, people kind of hit a better balance.
Yeah.
Like, you know what, I pushing myself physically to be on stage is maybe hurting the writing and hurting the now there's some people who can do it all, they somehow find extra hours in the day to do it all. I haven't figured that out yet. So
That work-life balance,
yeah.
the performing writing balance, and then you throw in personal life into that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of plates that are spinning. Um, let's go back to the page job for a while, because I mean, you
Yeah.
were there during a phenomenal time. A lot of really great memories. Let's talk a little bit about the day-to-day of things.
Yeah.
Was it a regular job for the most part, from hours and predictability within the unpredictability, but was it fairly predictable for the most part? You just didn't kind of know what was going to happen during the day.
So it was a part-time job. I would say,
Yep.
you end up working like, and also sorry about the sirens. I live on Amsterdam Avenue, so you might hear some sirens going by.
You can
But
make the joke, my ride's here anytime you like.
okay. So yeah, it was part-time. It was like 20 hours a week, I want to say. And for not a very normal job at all. And it paid crap, but we were
Hmm.
also happy to be there anyway. But they you would end up having to do occasionally, you would end up having to work with the box office,
Yep.
which that was a little bit more normal hours. That was a more 9 to 5 kind of gig. But otherwise you would go, and then it was just kind of getting the audience in, giving them the speech. Have you had another page on?
We have. Oh yeah. But your version of, like, figuring out your version of the speech, I'm very curious as to how that worked for you, because you get your rhythms, it's
Yeah.
basically like a monologue essentially.
Sure. Yeah. It's a total, and a lot of it was handed down. And you were allowed to change some things if you wanted to make it your own, which I did. I can't for the life of me remember anything that I would have tweaked to make it my own at this point. But I do remember weirdly, you would be like, all right, so let's practice like a punchline, and then you laugh, audience. And the two things that were most common that people did the entire time I was there, before the time I was there, after the time I was there, was you would say Donald Trump's hair, and then everyone would laugh.
Hmm.
Or a lot of times it was, and you would say Hillary's pantsuit. And this is 2009, 2010.
Yep.
Why did we predict the future? And I feel terrible about it. Like, what the hell? What happened? Why were we like praying in some way to like cause this?
Did we manifest this
Yes, right.
collectively?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember when like that election was going on, I was like, oh God, what have we done? But yeah, so it was, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6". I'm very, I'm very loud. So I would speech like the bigger parts of the audience, which, one time I got to do it because when it was inclement weather, they would take them inside,
Yep.
otherwise yelling at people on the sidewalk or like just inside the lobby.
Yep.
And so I got to do it at Roseland one time,
Yep.
with like being on the stage at Roseland, even though I'm not like performing any of my own art or music, but like, and you regularly killed with the speech,
Yes.
whether it's because you're actually good or you actually did anything creative. It maybe is not that. It's just that like they're excited. They're trying to show you they're excited.
Yep.
It's a very prepared audience.
Which is what you're trying to accomplish. Like I think
Sure, yeah.
Dave, I'm pretty sure Dave used the word indoctrination. I remember somewhere where he talked, it might have been the last show where he talked about the audience coordinators and how they would indoctrinate people, or maybe it was near the end of the run. He was talking to a guest about it, but it was very, I saw Colbert last year. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand what they do, but they were really focusing on the warm up guy to get the audience excited, compared to back in the Letterman days where it was you guys who had the audience like kind of frothing. And the
Yeah.
moment you walked into the audience chamber, to the actual studio, I
Audience
mean, the
chamber.
energy
That's
level was really, really high. And then Paul and the band just made it
yeah.
even more
And
so. Like, yeah,
Eddie doing his thing and then introducing the band, Eddie Brill, who I
absolutely.
listened to that episode and that was great, by the way.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, I love Eddie. Eddie's a friend.
yeah,
He's a friend. We love him. Love Eddie
yeah,
Brill.
he's great. But yeah, so it was that was so cool because then we would also go in and like be clapping with the band and everything. And I remember the seating song in 2009, 2000, early 2010 was "I Got a Feeling" by Black Eyed Peas, which
Yep.
like I remember hearing that Dave for some reason liked that song, and Dave has such a cool. He likes a lot of cool music, but I remember
Yep.
thinking like this one's not as cool as I guess he wanted that one. I mean, it's a great song for like getting people
Of course
amped.
it is.
So it worked out. But like, yeah, I just have these insane memories of just like having to clap along to that stupid song for every day for like a few months.
But it's
It was
very much an up with people type type gig that you're in. And
yeah,
and if you're I've had a couple people who have been on the show, and I've actually talked to who haven't been on the show, who have that almost that cynicism, that cynical type personality, and then they're thrown in. Like, I love the irony of that, because it is really, really up, positive, high vibration, which is my disposition. I'm a happy, positive guy. I love kindness. I love happiness and all that. I could have done that job very, very, very easily. I also know people who, worship the show, where they have kind of the exact opposite, but yet equally clever, and
yeah. It was just,
potent disposition. It's funny to me, is the irony of that.
sure. Some of the pages who were too cool for school, let's say, yeah,
Yes.
had trouble like. But I didn't mind. I loved it. I loved every second I was there. It was really cool. And I don't know. I mean, we only worked 4 days out of the week,
Yep.
so we always had a 3-day weekend. So every Thursday we'd all go out after work. It was just
McGivney. Did you go to the McGivney's?
so we were when I was there. Barcelona bar
Okay.
was the Page bar. It was very inexpensive. It still is a very inexpensive place to go. It's still around. I'm actually going to start hosting trivia. I'm covering for a guy who hosts their trivia starting in a couple weeks. So, or actually this coming Mondays, and then they do trivia there every Monday. So I'm hosting for until like March. I'll be hosting trivia at Barcelona Bar, the old
That's
Page bar.
fantastic.
Yeah, so a lot of fun. I remember one time we were leaving to go there, and we were all standing outside waiting for everyone to come out.
Yep.
And Dave came out, and he never would like you'd never see him almost, like you'd see him occasionally running around the hallways, but like you almost never saw Dave other
Yep.
than on the show.
Yep.
But he came out, and we were all like, "Holy shit!" And he just said, "Hey guys, Merry Christmas," and we were like, "Oh my God, that's so nice of him." And it took a few seconds for us to realize it was March. Like, what a nice guy. Wait a minute. That's no good. And then one of the other, I don't know why it reminded me, but like I got in a paparazzi picture by accident. It was Bill Murray was on, and he had crutches. He had broken his leg, I think. Maybe you remember what caused that, but so he was on crutches, and he always liked to come in the front door. You know, he didn't want to go in the side entrance or one of the secret entrances. He liked going in the front door. And our boss, I won't name names here, but she reminded us ahead of time. She's like, "Hey, Bill Murray likes to come in the front door. Just let him go." And I know it seems kind of weird. That's not normal, but like, let him in. We were like, okay. And then I guess he got to her, and she was like, "Sir, what are you doing?" She didn't immediately recognize him, and then she goes, "Oh my God!" And then he got it. So anyway, I'm in the background. I'm just kind of like, I'm behind Bill Murray, and I like turned my head because I'm like, what is happening? Why is everyone going nuts? And it's because he was walking in. So that's one of my favorite pictures from that time period, is me being confused about Bill Murray walking by me. And then I don't know, have you had Mike Leach on?
No, I would love to have Mike Leach on.
He started in the mailroom, and like he was in the mailroom when I worked there, when I was a page, and man, worked his way up to like, was he head? He might have been head writer by the end.
He was, I don't know if he was head, but yeah, no, he did that same thing that so many of the Ellenberg and some of these other guys did to get up there. You know, Bob Borden. I mean, he started in the mailroom as well, right? Like there's so many people that made their way up, and Leach is another one that did that.
So many great stories from that show specifically that are like that. But yeah, so this is one of his stories. Because I feel like you deserve to have it on your podcast. I'm going to steal it from him. But he was hanging out talking to, I think, Bill Murray, and Regis was on. I don't know when this would have been, but he was talking to them after the show, and Regis realized his shoe was untied. So Regis goes to tie his shoe, and Bill Murray's like, "I'll get that for you, Regis. You know, you're an old man. Let me get that." So he ties his shoe for him, and then he stands up. They talk a little more, and then Bill Murray's like, "I gotta go." So he leaves, and then Regis goes to leave a little bit later, and he realizes Bill Murray had tied his shoelaces together. So, and Regis was like, "I'm an old man. He might have killed me. You know, it's insane."
Oh, that's fantastic. See, Bill Murray loved his entrances on camera to be different as well. Like my favorite one, I think, was, Dave saying, "Please welcome to the show, Bill Murray." And suddenly the shot is outside, right beside, and a van pulls up, and Vinnie and somebody else are pulling a tied up and gagged Bill Murray out of the van. And they're throwing him into the the theater.
Vinnie, oh my God, Vinnie! We're talking about Vinnie,
right?
Have you had Vinnie on?
No, God, I would love to have Vinnie on. I have a personal experience with Vinnie. And because of that, it would really, really have a special place in my heart to have Vinnie on, or Mike. I heard Mike is down in Florida. I've got a line on Chief. There is a chance that I will actually get Bill on. I would love to have Chief on, and I think that would be really cool. But I would love to have Vinnie on as well, of course.
Vinnie used to tell us all these crazy stories. I'm not sure. Well, there's a lot of holes in some of the stories. Like he was like, we were around when rap started, and I was like, what? And he was, yeah, Biggie, Puffy, Snoopy, we knew all those guys. And I'm like, Snoopy, first of all, famous.
Snoopy.
Yeah. Also, that's not what he goes by. And second of all, he's famously from Los Angeles. What are you even talking about? So yeah, we saw him rapping. We didn't know what rapping was. Like he would just tell it. And he never looked. He would always look around your head, like he was looking to see if there was some sort of threat coming in. Like he's such a funny guy. I love Vinnie, man.
Oh, absolutely. I had this crazy experience with the show a month before retired, where I did a Q&A thing with Dave, and it got put into the New York Times.
Cool.
It's up there. Yeah, it's super, super cool. And then I've got my picture taken behind the desk with my wife. Vinnie Vinnie and Mike are the guys who made it happen. Yeah. And just talking to them both for a little bit longer than anybody else who would be in that context. You know, you're sitting at the front. I was on the gold list on the audience thing. You know, you get on the gold list, right? You get to go in first. You get to go. And so, you know, you talk to that security person. Well, I had more interaction with both those guys. And so I met Vinny, and I wrote down my experience. I called it the Letter Manifesto. It's like 15,000 words. And in that, I said, I met this dude who is the most stereotypical New York mobster guy that you'd ever meet. And it's Vinny. And then I met Mike. And then I said the exact same thing about it. Now I met they both just, they had
say mobster because they're literally former cops.
Former cops. I know, but they're heavies, right? They come across like they're a heavy. Like, you do not want to fuck with these guys.
Oh no, and man, the way they would like bully each other, you were like, these guys are ruthless. Such funny and great personalities, all of them. Yeah, that was the other cool part. Like, they would, like, well after I had paged there, they would always get us in for like the Live on Letterman concerts.
Oh,
like, we could just show up. I'm probably definitely not supposed to say that, but like, yeah, they would just be like, yeah, come on. They'd sneak us in like the side and like let us sit front. They would make us sit front row. Like, they would be like, right here. And we're like, we don't need that, because it's like on, you know, it's like on TV essentially. Yeah. You're just like, I don't need to really show that we're abusing like the system, man. They didn't care though. They were so fun. Yeah.
Were there any highlights, if you remember, from that? Like any shows? Which ones did you love going to see? Because that was such a special series.
I went and saw Snoopy. That was that. I went and saw Snoop Dogg, and that was super fun. But then he was like, I got a special guest. He's got crazy hair and he smokes more weed than me. And everyone in the audience is like, Dr. Dre? Who is he talking about? And then Willie Nelson came out. And Willie did like a couple songs with him, and I was the only person excited about that. Like,
my god!
I was front row. I was like, yeah, like, all right, this
getting a contact high. That's fantastic.
This nerdy white guy in front row. Also, like, I'm really tall, and like being front row for Snoop, I was like uncomfortably close to him. You know, like, he's looking at me like, who the fuck? What is this? But yeah, that was super fun. Saw Foo Fighters, Wilco.
My god, those are two of the big. Those two and Cake.
Those are Cake. I was at the Cake.
You were there for the Cake one.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, watch them again. You'll find me. I mean, I didn't have I didn't quite look like this. But if you see just a tall, awkward,
big tall guy, yeah,
that's me. Hey, well, let me ask you. You when you went to Late Show, when you're talking about, did you have long hair and a beard then? Or
I
no?
didn't. I didn't. I was way more clean cut. And
yeah, they wouldn't let a guy like you now on the gold list.
No way. Well, the way that I got on the gold list. So that's Dave using me as a comedy speed bag to Paul, and that moment was immortalized in the New York Times. Like, literally, the moment where he's making fun of me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, it's a lottery win from an odds perspective. Like, how in the world, I needed to see him one last time. And so, that's where I started, phoning in and bugging the office a little bit. That's how I got on the gold list and whatnot. And I knew I was going to kind of manufacture the picture of Candy and I behind the desk. I knew I could make that happen. Yeah. But then serendipity kind of steps in, and Dave, hey, I got a question. And I was a little bit of a brat. And so in that, he starts going back and forth, and the moment he said, Paul, these Canadians are supposed to be polite, and the whole audience laughing at me and whatnot, the New York Times guy just happens to be there that day doing the coverage for the behind the scenes. Click, take a picture of that moment. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it just absolutely. And then to top it off too, I get the old I know it wasn't Hal obviously, but the Hal Gurney. Dave comes out the moment the monologue starts. He comes out and he goes, yeah. I asked him about a jacket. He goes, yeah, if you're really good, we'll get you a jacket. And then it pans to me in the audience. Like Hal back in the day, back in the original late nights, would do that whenever they referred to somebody in the audience. Hal would get the shot in there, right? Yeah. Well, they did the same thing for me. So, the moment is immortalized in the New York Times, and then I've got the clip that I can watch whenever I'm feeling sad. I can watch that clip, and it's like,
did they give you a jacket?
Not that night, which again, that was part of the joke. But the universe kind of knew that eventually I would host the show here. So I've got 8 of them now.
Oh,
But
cool. Oh, you got
yeah,
me. I have 3, which is more than like most pages because like there's your page jacket,
yep,
which I have, and then they give everyone every year another one. Like, and it's not a page jacket; it's just another late show jacket for
yeah.
Christmas. There's a Christmas gift one every year, and then one of the security guys just gave me a late show jacket they had that they were just like, I have too many of these. And
Yep.
it's I don't know if you can see it's a black one that says late show behind me. It's like you see Dave wearing that one quite often, actually, where
Absolutely.
on one side and then the black jacket late and then show,
Yeah, and you
which
got the red one there as well.
yeah, that the red one was the Christmas one, and then that's the page. It's the back of the page jacket. Just says Worldwide
The
Pants.
DWP, yeah. Well, and that's, if it's okay with you, the thumbnail that I want to use when you
Oh,
and I
yeah.
get to know each other.
Yeah.
You've got a very fun picture of you giving
Yeah.
giving the salute to the white.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a funny story, actually. So when when Trump won the first time, I went to DC, or actually no, sorry, the week before he was being inaugurated. I went on just like we went to Washington DC. It was some planned thing we had to do, and then I was like, I know Obama's in there, but like I have to, and I don't mean to flip off Barack Obama, but I'm going to make this my profile picture the day Trump is inaugurated. So, it's really funny. The people that got mad about me posting it on Trump's Day, I felt like explaining to them, well, actually, he wasn't in there yet. But like symbolically, yes, it is a fuck you to Trump. Uh, but yeah, and also like, yeah, what a perfect jacket to wear because there was no one, you know, before he ran, there was no one who poked more fun at Trump than Letterman, like just a
Absolutely.
natural enemy. So yeah, but that was,
For decades. I mean, even when you go back, um, I believe this is. I'll fact check it. I'm 99% on this one. You go back to in '05. Letterman does a tribute show to Johnny Carson after Johnny Carson passes away.
yeah,
And the one thing, and it's come out, since then many different times and ways, is that Johnny Carson would write jokes and send them in for Dave's monologue, which is, I love that part of the history of the show. And so the entire monologue of that show, Dave did Johnny Carson jokes that he had sent in to Dave. Well, there was a Donald Trump joke in that. like,
wow,
like you go, and all
the
the way back, like
foreshadowing.
there are so many times where there are Donald Trump jokes back there. I was thinking about the SNL 15-year reunion that I saw back in high school. Trump was in the audience, and people were making fun of him, and it was just the guy has literally for decades been the punchline of all
Yeah,
of these jokes, right? So
yeah.
so
I
yeah,
mean, I think I thought of him. I thought he was just kind of doing a character like Trump. Like
me
I
too.
thought he was just like this like rich asshole guy who would come on
Hmm.
Howard Stern and Letterman and like would just say dickish things and look funny.
Outrageous things, crazy
Yeah,
things.
yeah. And then yeah, I don't that like somehow appealed to people in like a way where you're like, wait, no, we're not supposed to like this guy. Like, what are you doing? But I don't know, man. I'm not a political scientist, but shit's gone afoul, askew, even.
Absolutely. I like some of the. I did see some of your clips that are out there. You made a good joke about the idea of you being. It was the Gore Bush.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's a little bit of some biography there. Yeah, I
yeah.
did. I worked on that campaign. And I volunteered because you had to have like a certain number of volunteer hours to graduate high school because
Yep.
I went to performing arts high school and like that just seemed like an easy one. Like, sure, yeah. I mean, like I had just kind of figured out loosely where my politics were. I remember like, you know, before the hyper partisanship that we're in now kind of started back then though.
Yep.
But like I remember I watched the Republican convention with George W. Bush, and I was like, well, I don't think I like this. And so I was like, all right, I guess I like this other thing then. And you think at that time, the 16-year-old brain, you're like, well, there's only two things. There's only one or the other.
Yep.
You got to pick one.
Yep.
And so I don't go volunteer for Al Gore. And all I did was call like older Democrats in Florida, to be like,
Yep.
you need to ride to the polls, you need to ride to the polls. And, you know, yeah, and then the election came down to being so close. It's like, man, if I had just tried a little harder, we wouldn't have had Iraq war or anything, just I feel bad. I owe my country an apology, I guess. But yeah, that's just a real story. Like
Yep.
that is one of the weirder things about growing up in Florida at that time, was that happening.
Do you still have a lot
So
of family there?
no, so my well, actually, yes. But my mom and my sister have moved to North Carolina, which is a great area, by the way. Have you ever been to Wilmington, North Carolina?
I haven't. I've heard the Carolinas are absolutely amazing. I want to go see both of them.
Yeah, fantastic area. So they live there now, and yeah, we're kind of trying to not go to Florida as much anymore. It's kind of fallen into the wrong hands, if you ask me. So I'm like, I don't need to go. But yeah, I got some family there still. So I try to just get them to come to me,
The Florida punchlines are always fun. I love to play the Florida Man game on
Yeah.
your birthday. You pick your birthday and you play. Just put in a Florida Man, and that's a fun game, and it's a fun punchline to have out there. I want to talk about some of these other memories that you have of working for the show. One of the since you and I have decided to do this, it's come out that one of my favorite moments of the show. It's actually in my top 10 moments of any Letterman moment. Music is like a huge part of my life, and one of the things I love are the musicians that I know because they broke or appeared
Oh yeah.
on Letterman. And
Yeah.
one of those bands that I still love to this day is a band from Britain called The Heavy.
Yeah.
Rock and roll with horns and very much a blues.
Rock and roll with horns, you just described all like the late show band. I mean, that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, and that was just it. Like they were a perfect how do you like me now? And then they came on a second time and played a song called What Makes a Good Man. And the cool thing about that, they come out there and they play How You Like Me Now. And it was so good and so much energy. And you're right. I do believe that the energy of that song was absolutely a perfect match for what Paul and the band did. And it was so good that Dave said, "Hey, why don't you play it again?" And he makes them play the whole song again. And then the second time they showed up, they played What Makes a Good Man. And Dave loved it so much. And he's like, "Why don't you guys sing How You Like Me Now?" And they sang How You Like Me Now. So this band has appeared twice. And both times Dave got them to play a second time.
Wait,
And you were there. You were there for one of those. You were there for one of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. So like they did the song and it was great. And then Dave came out and was like, do it again. And the audience and the pages and everyone, we were just like so confused as to what was happening. Like literally people are just like look around like, is this what's happening? And we, because like after the band plays, it's then the end of the show. Like he comes out and ends the show, and then we're supposed to like tell people to get the hell out of there, remind them to not take pictures, shit like that.
Yep.
And so when they started just playing again, we were like, everyone was so confused in the studio. We were like, what's happening? And then and then we're just like laughing because we're like, they are just doing it again. Like, what is this? And then they end, and you kind of figure it out because they show on the screens that are, they show that like, all right, you're coming back from commercial again.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, okay, I don't know how this is going to look on the televised version, but like they did just play the whole song. They played the entire song.
Yep.
Again. I don't know if did they ever put out like what it was like in real time? Or
I think well, see, what they did was, if memory serves me correctly, I might be thinking of the second performance, but the second time they played one of the songs, they ran the credits. So they basically made the end of the show the band playing the song again, and the audience at home saw them play kind of maybe half of the song for a second time, kind of a thing. So that was one, if not both of them. But I think that's what we saw. But it's certainly both times, because by the time they came back the second time, and played What Makes a Good Man, I was a fan of the Heavy already, and I was excited to see them back. So you know, I don't know if I had the original one DVR'd still, but I had it in my memory. Oh yeah, when they came on the last time, Dave made it play the song, play twice. Them doing it again, it was just such a big moment, and so the audience both times, the television audience, I should say,
Yeah.
definitely knew that they played twice.
I'm sure your audience knows this, that like when the band when Paul and the band would play, they just played a whole song and
Yes.
it would come back, you know, from commercial on them finishing the song they started when it went to commercial. Like
It wasn't
in
8 bars of the intro to
right.
the song and then 8 bars of the middle of the song when they come back.
Yeah,
Y-
in reality, they played it in its entirety. And then I remember I remember one time Jay-Z and Eminem were on as musical guests and they were performing on the roof.
They sure were.
And
They did Renegade. It was amazing.
yeah, and but Paul, to give everyone enough time for that setup, they played Freebird, and and when they came back from commercial, I remember thinking like, "Holy shit, they're playing Freebird!" Like I in my mind, and I was standing there like I was main floor too, so I'm like standing there watching this. I'm
Oh
like,
man.
have they ever played Freebird? Like it's just not one of the songs you would hear them do. Like there were a bunch of songs that they would do, like that I think of as that I think of as like their songs at that
Yeah.
point. You know, I heard them play the song so many times. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think they ever played Freebird. And they come back from commercial, and Dave's like, we've been doing this show for like 20 years. First time you've played Freebird, and I was like, okay, it was the first time. I was there when they played Freebird,
Oh, that's outstanding.
but all to give them enough time to set up the roof, you know, to get up to the roof and everything. But and then of course Darlene Love, the Christmas I love that mega mix they put together. But like the one I was there for was so unbelievable, and I love that song, one of my favorite Christmas songs. Real quick though, the Orwells were
Yep.
another band that he asked to just play it again. The what's that? Who Needs You, which
Yep.
is a fun song. That band got into some unfortunate trouble and I think is canceled now. But that performance was great. And then Dave did the same thing. He was like, do it again. And they look so confused when he's like, hey, play it again. They're like, what? Like, because I feel like the younger bands who they would just not think Dave would be into their music.
Yeah.
I think that was the confusion. They were
Yeah.
like, is he making fun of us? Like, what is this? But no, man, he had a genuine love for like young, hip music.
Absolutely.
TV on the radio when they came on, like
Oh, they played on the first time. Might not have been the first time. They played on the fire escapes.
yeah.
Oh, that was such a great
Yeah.
rendition when they did that.
I remember the Black Keys did that too. I think for their live on Letterman, if I'm not mistaken. But
Black
yeah,
Keys. See, there's all of these bands. This is the thing that like I love this thing being indie. Like I there's parts of it where, and I've actually had people who have said to me, you know, Mike, you're actually lucky because I can do whatever I want at this point, not
right.
being affiliated, but wanting to be affiliated, but not there yet. But I have
Sure.
flat out said I would love to have a second Letterman podcast called Live on Letterman that literally just focuses on the music. I don't know. I know there's rights when it comes to music and all that sort of stuff. I just think Apple bring in back up a Brinks truck and make it happen so you can talk to some of these bands now who got these breaks on Letterman and you know play the moments because the moments
Yeah.
are so unique. I've had Harvey Goldberg on here and I mean he would talk about how the performances on Letterman, whether it was the full on live on Letterman or just their one shot,
Yeah.
it is a unique performance because yes, you see the live version, but then they've also got the studio in the back where they can augment and they can make things sound because the goal was to make it sound as perfect as possible. And it was literally the blending of a live experience and a studio experience at the same time. And you just don't get that any other way. And some of these performances were just so unique.
And the Future Islands one, like whenever I'm having you know, whenever the party has gotten to the point where we're like, let me show you this cool thing on YouTube. Let me show you this cool thing on YouTube. It's that and then the Orwells, like is what I usually show people. I'm like, watch how much Dave really likes this, you know. It's so funny.
The confusion part that you were referring to too, like I loved the jokes that Dave would have that were literally a slow burn that would go over months and years sometimes. And how do are those your drums is one of those things
Yeah.
where at the end of the musical performance he would look, and I always loved looking at each individual drummer to see their reaction when he would ask that question.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh man. Yeah. the confusion. Like, is he fucking with us? It's just his way of showing that he really enjoyed your performance. You could tell. Like, that's the fact that people couldn't tell it was genuine. I was always kind of tickled by. It's like, yeah, no, he's enjoyed what you've done here and is showing it. One of the like repeat jokes he would do back when like McCain, and even after McCain had run for president, was he would keep talking about how he was blowing on his soup. Do you remember this era? And my friend Zach Levin, who was a page, wrote that joke. And so like every time Dave, which like you used to be able to submit jokes as pages, but then they stopped that by the time they stopped that because of me. No, they stopped that before. But like, but yeah, so Zach like would get a check every time he would, and he did. Dave was so tickled by that, and he would just do it when it was nonsense, when it had nothing to do with anything. He would just be like, and there's McCain blowing on his soup, and just like another check for Zach. But
became a Lettermanism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially for that time period.
We've got a gal coming on the show who, if you remember, Tommy Ruprecht had a phenomenal reoccurring bit called "Great Moments in Presidential Speeches," and it was
oh my God,
a little clip of Bush. So there's one where there's a lady who is on stage sitting in a chair, in front of President Bush, sitting beside her in a chair, and she is talking about the woes of her RCA television set. And George Bush is just listening to that going, oh boy, listening to this woman talk about television. So, and I mean, when we have her on the show, I've got permission from Pants to put the clip in, which I'm very grateful for. So it'll make a lot more sense when they see that. I'm having that lady come on here, and it was that was one of those ones where every once in a while Dave would be so tickled pink with something that it would come back. So it happened the first time in some sort of bit, and then it became a Great Moments in Presidential Speeches bit, and then it became another bit, and the only reason they would keep bringing it back is because Dave was tickled with it, and they would keep using it, and there are many examples of that through the years.
Oh yeah, I love the repeat jokes where it's now just a reference. It's not even pointed at anything anymore. It's just like, remember how I keep saying this?
The sneezing monkey, or the monkey washing the kitty, things like that. And I mean, that brings me back to Rick. Did you ever cross paths with Rick Sheckman? Did you know Shecky at all?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I mean, when was he there?
Shecky was the whole time. He was there from NBC all the way to the very, very end. He was what they called the film coordinator. So the black and white footage of the monkey washing the kitty, that's something that Shecky would have found in his archives and all of that sort of stuff. He brought in when they were the very famous clip of them going through the cave. And that joke was they were going through somebody's colon, and we got footage of the the orthoscopic surgery of people going through a cave. Shecky was the guy that found that footage. So
I might have been there for that one, actually.
Probably, yeah. That's another one of those. That was another one of those reoccurring things that Dave liked, that they would continually.
Who was it? Matt Lauer had his colonoscopy.
It was Harry. I'm trying to remember. It was like Harry. It was a CBS news guy, I think, called Harry somebody. And I forget his name at this point. But
yes, you're right. And yes, it was that time period. Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
You go. No. Like I just love riffing with you on this stuff. This is what other memories you got from how about you're a stand-up now. You're obviously the craft of stand-up is clearly attached to your DNA. Stand-ups that you would have seen there do sets, are any of them in your memory? Did any of them make an impact back then? I know it was before you were doing it, but
that's funny. The music sticks out so much more for me that like I don't remember which stand-ups I would have seen on the show. Before I got on the Zoom with you, I was looking up. I was trying to find a list of all the episodes that I would have been around for.
Yep.
And I had just found one and was just kind of looking through and was like, holy shit, yeah, I do remember being there for that interview. I do remember being there for that interview. Not a stand-up, and also not a particularly memorable episode to me. But Tobey Maguire like physically ran into me in the hallway when he was on. I think he was
the height difference. Did you floor him? Did he hit the ground after he?
Well, yeah. Also, I was up on a step. Like he ran into my crotch, and I was wearing a fanny pack for some reason. I just thought
Uh-huh.
it'd be fun to wear a fanny pack to work, and like because there were certain like things we had to keep on us, and I was like, I'm gonna keep mine in a fanny pack instead of my
It's
pocket.
it's handy
Yeah, it was a white leather fanny pack, and he
and
like
bougie. Wow, there you
yeah
go.
he ran into me and then like looked at the fanny pack and then at me, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, literally around a corner. There was no like, oh, I see Toby Maguire coming. It was just like, boom, he's like at my crotch, looking me in the fanny pack. And I'm like, I just said, I think you can go up there. And he's like, okay. And like he just walked past me. It was a real most strange interaction. And then one time I was out front um for the start of the show, just like I think if any like VIPs got there a little
Yep.
late, maybe I had like a list, and this guy walks up and was like, "Can I get in here?" And I just thought it was like some random person. I wasn't really looking, and then I look up to be like, "No, beat it." And it was Stephen Baldwin because his brother was on the show. So I was like, "Oh," I was like, you gotta go around the side, man." Like, and then one time we were going, I don't know if any other pages have told you about how we would go to like Times Square to give out tickets was a thing we would do.
Yep, we've talked a
Okay.
little bit about that, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, out front of the theater itself on a Saturday or on a Times
No, no,
Square, things like that.
yeah, we would
Absolutely.
have to go. They would have us go to Times Square for some reason. Out front might have been, well, no, because then you had people coming into the box office, so you wouldn't want to be out front doing it.
No,
But
sorry, on a Saturday. On a Saturday, sometimes
yeah,
that would be the case. They would be doing it for yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we would go down to Times Square to, you know, to have like trivia and give tickets out based on that. And we were
Hmm.
walking, and this guy like stopped us and was like, "Hey, are you guys giving out tickets for Letterman?" And we were like, yeah, and like, you know, he had facial hair and long hair, and we were like, you know, it's not really the kind of person we were looking for to give tickets to, you
Uh-huh.
know, like because you wanted to have more like clean cut for like the advertisers is who you
Sure.
want to put in the seats. So like we were like, oh, yeah, and then he was like, yeah, my he was like, my uncle knows Paul, and we were like, oh, okay, that's cool, you know. And he's like, yeah, my uncle is Clarence Clemens. We were like, okay, yeah, that you could probably just go and get in. Like they'll just give you VIP tickets actually, you know, like that sounds like what you should do. And then that turned out to be Jake Clemens, who's now like that's who was talking to us was Jake Clemens, who's now the saxophonist for the E Street Band.
That
But
is
we were
fantastic.
like, oh no, this guy who has kind of an alternative look wants to see the Late Show, and then we're like, oh no, you actually are important, and you can just go get tickets whenever you want, man. But he was very nice, very nice. And then one time when I was going down there, I don't know, like this might be too, you know, who the hell is that guy?
Mhm.
But I saw Jesse Palmer when I was walking back with one of the girls I paged with. We were walking back to Late Show after having given out tickets. I saw Jesse Palmer, who uh, I know him best as the quarterback for the Florida Gators, who was my team that I was a fan of, or still am a fan of.
Yep.
And but he also went on to like he hosts shows on like Food Network, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and become a TV person. Oh yeah, he was on The Bachelor. That's what he's like most famous for. Is he was like
Okay.
Bachelor. He was like the original Bachelor, I think.
Yep.
So man, if he's listening to this, he's pissed. So but
No, we got there. We
yeah,
got there. He's fine now. He's good.
yeah,
He's good. We
I
got
saw
there.
I saw him and I was like, I just said go Gators to him, and he just said go Gators back, and then walked like a block more. And my friend who I was paging with, she was like, "Hey, who is your hot friend?" And I'm like, "We're not friends." I just recognize, I know who that is. Like, oh, we're just having a little like not stopping to talk. Go Gators. Bye. Yeah, see you later. That's all we say. On a slightly less fun note,
Uh-huh.
I was there like when Cosby was like making the female staffers like watch him eat. Did you read that story?
I did read that. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
That's
remember if that came out then or if it came out after he got, into the more legitimate trouble that he got into.
I'm trying to remember where I heard that story.
Well, it was in the Post. Like,
No, I'm trying to remember if it was before or after. I
Have you
became
had
aware.
anyone?
I became re-aware of it because of this show. But
Yeah,
yeah, I remember. I remember it was familiar to me, and I forget. It was probably the Post article that came out.
yeah, because
You were
like,
there for that, like
yeah,
around.
I never saw Cosby like lurking the halls or anything, but like some of the women that we worked with, and it wasn't the pages, as far as I know anyway. He never had like the female pages go, but like, it was just like, I feel like one of the women we knew that worked there was like, yeah, I had to go sit in a room while Bill Cosby ate. It was real weird. Like, you think maybe it wasn't like you have to do this sort of thing. I
No.
think more like oh, Cosby would like, and then you just kind of get there and realize it's all women in here. Like, what is this? Like, just kind of a weird,
Hmm.
just a weird, like, what the heck? What was that? Like, so it was just, yeah, unfortunate, one of those things.
Oh yeah, like I mean, there's a picture of him in the yearbook. Like, actually, there might even be a couple pictures of him there, and one of them, like you think about the history of Late Show, and I mean how few and far between there were guest hosts for the show,
Yeah.
and the only time it ever happened was if there was some sort of medical thing with
Oh, yeah.
with Dave. But Bill Cosby is one of them, and I mean, watch the interview with Bill Cosby and Sofia Vergara.
Yeah.
Back in the
Terrible.
day, it doesn't
Hasn't
age
aged
well.
well.
No,
No, no.
I mean, there's going to be stuff that doesn't age well because of culture, but then there's also going to be stuff like, I mean, I get a kick out of listening to some of the things that Dave says about then Mayor Giuliani, even up at the highest level at 9/11, where he talks about
Yeah.
Mayor Giuliani. But that's the most kind of famous one. But I go through a lot of footage, as you can imagine, and
Yeah.
there are so many times listening to him talk about Mayor Giuliani back then. When you put it through the microscope and time as to what's happened, it becomes humorous. The Cosby one, sometimes
Not.
these things become cringeworthy, and that one is
Yeah.
certainly one of those ones.
Yeah. Another thing I remember from the show is you would often find yourself in an elevator with Paul, and he was always really interested in what snacks. Like if you had a bag of chips, he would be like, "Where'd you get that?" And just like the snack machine, like what? Like he was just always so interested in what everyone was snacking on. I think maybe his green room didn't have enough snacks in there, I guess. I don't know. One time I was telling you earlier, we would go to this Barcelona place, was kind of the place the pages would go.
Yep.
Well, after we were done paging, like I was no longer working there. But we were just there on like a weekend having some drinks. And
Yep.
then one of the security guys, not one of like the older ones, one of the younger security guys, was like, let's go hang out. He was like, I got a bottle in my locker at work. Let's go like drink at the show. And we were like, yes. And so we go over there and we're just like hanging out on the stage, drinking. Definitely was not supposed to be doing that, especially since I didn't work there anymore. But like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
there were just a few of us that just went over there and had some drinks at the desk, like what an insane thing to decide to do. But yeah, that was just the kind of thing. It was just like the kind of thing you could do, and was still because yeah, I mean, like we didn't break in, there's
No.
always someone there,
No.
there's always a security person there. We're just like, oh, we're going up to the locker rooms. They're like, all right. And yeah, like it was just
But okay, you walk into, like, I haven't been out there for a year now. It was a year ago, October actually, that I was out there for Rupert's retirement.
yeah.
And that was in the lobby of the theater. Well,
Yes.
like when you walk into the actual theater itself, even
Yeah.
though it's now Colbert's, it's changed completely. It's all, you walk in there though, there's an energy on that stage. There's
Yeah.
an energy that's there. And I think it has to, I don't know if how energy works and how it collects and all this sort of stuff, but there's a definite energy in that place. There's no
Yeah.
question, and
I
it
mean,
culminates towards the stage.
yeah.
There's no question about that.
Elvis,
Yep.
the Beatles,
Yep.
Justin Bieber, just to name a few.
Hey, were you there when he gave Bieber the snake bite? When he
Probably. I was definitely there like when Justin Bieber was becoming very popular. And actually I do remember one of the girls that worked there being like, Justin Bieber like just hit on me, like, and he was like a child at that time.
hitting on a
And
25-year-old woman.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's like what? You don't have with those stories, you know. You don't have with like Justin Bieber hit on me, you know. Okay. My favorite bit, I don't know why this reminded me of that, but my favorite bit that Dave would do at that time is he would get like a phone call, like his phone would ring at the
Yeah.
desk and he would pick it up and it was just like some random person like had dialed the wrong number and gotten
Yeah.
Dave. And it was like this old confused man, you know.
Absolutely.
And I remember there was one, it was like, he's like, guess who I saw at the dunk? And he would say, he would call things by the wrong name. Guess who I saw at the Dunky Donuts was what the guy said. And he said, Justin Bieber. He tried to kiss me. It's like, I love that bit. I don't know. It's
I
so
love
dumb.
that bit too. That was one of my favorite bits. At the end,
Yeah.
when that would happen. And there was also times where he would throw stuff through the glass,
Yeah.
and like a CB call from an emergency service or something like that would then happen. It was just I loved how they were still tinkering and experimenting with things right up to the end, like Lyle the intern. I love Lyle the
Yeah.
intern.
Oh my God.
I just the fuck you guy who's
Yeah.
been on this show. So I loved that stuff and how up to the end they were still doing odd things that they were just playing with things still.
Yeah. And Alan Coulter, by the way, he did.
Oh, yeah.
So they would I don't know, quarterly or maybe every half a year they would have one of the people that like, you know, one of the higher up jobs at the show would come and
Yep.
like do what was called a page talk, where they would kind of tell us like, you know, how they got to where they're doing and whatever. And Alan did one when I was there, and he was so nice. He was also just like one of the nicest people in that building.
Yep.
You know, worked on that show, always said hello to the pages, always like would stop and talk, like just one of the nicest guys ever. And yeah, he did. And so he came and did a page talk. And like I had already done some voiceover work before I was there. And, you know, and he was really cool and like giving advice about that kind of thing. And I still do voice work today. So yeah, I was hugely appreciative of like, I mean, I took notes. I mean, I have like a notebook of like notes that I took from him. But yeah,
Fantastic.
what an unbelievably nice guy.
Yeah, everybody talks about how kind Alan was, and we had Al Chez on, and he would talk about, he would go golfing all the time with him and Anton and Chez, and they would all,
That's
just
great.
the Alan Coulter stories are just they're everybody's got one, and his kindness usually has something to do with the story. He was just fantastic.
He had this really funny bit. I can't imagine it was the only time he ever said this, but he was like, yeah, you know, this is a good job. You know, you come in, it's just kind of 9 to 5. And then at the end of the day, I go home and me and my wife take our makeup off.
And actually the last time I saw him, it was after Eddie had finished his run warming things up. Alan was at the end warming up the crowd as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. The
Didn't know
last time
that.
I saw him, yeah, he warmed up the crowd and was so comfortable and familiar and just but funny. He's just this funny guy.
Yeah, so unbelievably naturally funny, Alan Coulter. Yeah.
Yeah,
And also, like he had a real like old time TV. It's like the kind of person you could see Conan really liking, and you know, because he has such an appreciation for that. Like he like walks by the control room and like, hey, how you do? You know, he's like always saying hello. He's got his jacket on the whole time. He was just so a piece of television history, man. It was so fun.
Absolutely. Well, I love the reverence that Conan has for this too. Talk about the stage you guys drinking at the desk. There's an old story. There's an old story of Conan working for Saturday Night Live, who would be writing sketches, and he would go down 2 floors to sit at then late night with David Letterman's desk, and he would sit at Letterman's desk and he would write sketches at the desk. Everything's closed off and all that stuff, right? These things they got juice to them. They just do.
And you know, I probably should have tried to figure out where they take the chair. The chair would never be left there. The
Nope.
chair that he sat in would never be left there. But they would have like a folding chair there because they knew people would want to get the pictures there. So what an interesting like foresight to have to be like, all right, people shouldn't be just hanging out here, but like
we know people are going to hang out here. Yep.
Yeah. So we're gonna give them the chair to sit at. But yeah, I never did see where they take the chair when at the end of the day. How'd you get that piece of the set, by the way?
The bridge?
Yeah.
The bridge was so somebody Okay, so how what am
Because
I
I
allowed
know
to
some
say?
people with other pieces, and yeah,
Yes. He was one of those people who wanted to remain he wanted to remain anonymous
yeah,
but he grabbed it, didn't know what he would do with it when he found out that the show was happening. He's like, well, let's figure out a way to get it
it's
in
great.
use again, to get it used, right?
It's
So
great.
yes.
Very impressed by it. I'm like, how'd you get that?
I'm very grateful. I got a few things around here that are one of a kind, and
Yeah,
from the show, in part of the history and stuff, and
yeah. I have a
hopefully
few.
there'll be more of that coming.
Yeah, I have a few scripts. Yeah, obviously, whenever you could take a piece at it's so funny too how I'm still. It's been 15 years, and I'm still like a little afraid I'm gonna get fired. And like I haven't worked there. Like what? Like they can't fire me.
I've been
But I'm
assured
not.
that the what do they call that? Oh man, my vocabulary is not where it needs to be this morning, and I'm not sure exactly
Same.
why. But the statute of limitations has expired. I've been
Yeah.
assured on almost everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I trust you enough then. I'll name some names. Yeah, that works. No, yeah. Like, no, it's funny that I'm still like kind of careful. Like,
Yep.
I'm like, oh, wait, I shouldn't say what that, the what, I mean, I'm telling you a lot, but I'm also holding back some stuff.
Oh, that's
I just don't need, and it's weird. Like, there's no trouble, you're not
nope.
gonna get in trouble. I just don't need Vinnie coming kicking my ass. That's
No,
all
nobody needs that.
I,
Um, no, it's true though that like it's I call it the circle of trust. I've got a lot of stuff in the circle of trust. There's been a lot of stuff that gets said, after the record button goes on. Shecky, before he passed, like the whole reason that this show started and I got connected with it actually has to do with Alan. I become friends with Shecky during the pandemic, and he realized that I'm an enthusiast, but I don't want to say I'm not too crazy. I'm not too crazy. I'm not one of the bad
yeah,
crazies,
yeah,
but I go deep, and I was beside myself that there wouldn't be a Letterman podcast, that this show kind of wouldn't, not this show. I mean, a version
yeah,
of it that's really good. It didn't exist, and where people would talk about this, and Checky would tell me all of these stories, and these stories are going to go to my grave. Like some of the stories he told me are like, whoa, but in any office, if you're in an office with more than 50 people, you are going to see every behavior known to man
yeah,
happen in that office. If you have a family with more than 40 or 50 members, you're going to see or hear within that family of any behavior ever. There's nothing new under the sun, but it
right.
becomes elevated when you realize, well, this workplace happens to be, one of the greatest shows ever put on TV. But really, at the end of the day, it's nothing that is that new or whatever. But there's a lot of that. And the thing that strikes me so much about the Pants family is how loyal. And that's the one thing that I take from it, and it's so precious to me. At Rupert's retirement party, they did one of the big group shots, and I'm sure
Yeah,
you were involved in one
yeah,
or more of the big group shots. I got to be in that, and I'm standing beside Steve O'Donnell as I'm in this shot, and it's like, oh my God. And even after, at that point it was 9 years, these people coming back together. Same thing for Shecky's funeral, or his memorial, I should say, Sheckfest, which was so beautifully produced and executed. It was just this thing. But watching, it's a family getting together,
yeah,
and I want to create. Again, like I've got some ideas where we could create some of these events where people could get together, not when somebody dies,
yeah.
because it is a family. Like you talk about all these relationships that you still have
Oh, yeah.
after 15 years, and you still have them in your life, and
Yeah.
these are people that you
I've
met
been to
from
their
back in the
wedding.
day.
Yeah. I mean, like these are some of my closest friends were made at that show, going like some of them have kids now. I've been to their weddings, all this. So
Yep.
you mentioned earlier though, you were like, also they did used to have page reunions, but then like the person who was in charge of those moved away. But like I
Oh,
guess we have to elect a new leader or
your
something.
linchpin. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need one of those. You need one of those people who can kind of gather the cats.
Because those were so fun, and yeah, all right, maybe we should try and have those again. But yeah, please let me know if you do any of the if you want to become that. I don't know, but, but yeah, I would vote for you, man.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would call elderly Floridians, see if they need a vote for you. I would 100% do that. But you talked a little bit about the you're not crazy, which is
Yeah.
good to hear. But like there were people that he had stalkers. I don't know if this has come up, but
Oh
like
yeah.
there we had to have the pages had to have all the names memorized of each one. And there was like 20 names. There was and one of them had like 5 names. So that was kind of a difficult one to remember.
One
But
individual had 5 separate names.
well, they had like a bunch of clearly like stage names added to their name, I guess. And
Ah.
this I definitely cannot repeat. I mean, I can tell you what I'm telling you. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going,
yeah, yeah. But we're
but
not. Yeah.
there was like 15 women and 5 men on this. But they couldn't ever print it. It could not be printed. We had to like every so often we had to have it memorized and prove we had it memorized. And I met one of them because they came up to me to try to get in one time when I was standing out of the front. It wasn't Stephen Baldwin, by the way. I'm not outing talker, but yeah, I was like kind of a similar thing. I was just kind of standing there, and they're like, "Can I get in?" And I'm like, "No, who the fuck?" And then they were like, "Well, tell Dave, such and such says hello." And I'm just like, "You're one of
Oh
the
man.
fuckers."
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, that's unsettling. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, it's rough. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, that was. It's unfortunate that that's a thing that happens with like with fame. Like you
Yep.
get these. I mean, because there was the one who like broke into his house, right, and killed herself, wasn't
She
that? Yeah.
became, she was a punchline for years and years and years, and then it ended, and then part of it too is the part where Dave understood that she is, got some imbalance issues, some mental issues and whatnot, and didn't, you know, flex what he could have when it came to options as to charges and things like that. And then
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, I mean, really, it didn't end well, and she
Right.
took her own life.
And
But
people would always ask me, they would be like, did you meet Dave? Did you talk to Dave? And like, I mean, he said hello a couple times, the Merry
mhm.
Christmas thing. But he said hello a couple times and was like nice,
Mhm.
but like, no, like people, by that point, he had to close his circle in a little bit, especially with all the stalkers and all that stuff. So like by that time, yeah, he wasn't really like coming and hanging out, with the pages, certainly. But like he was nice. He was very nice.
Yep.
The Christmas gifts had a note in them. Like he was very, and you'd hear stories about him like taking care of someone's like medical bills in a way that like
Yeah.
he didn't have to do that, but like, did. And like, so very nice guy
Many of
by
those
all.
circle of trust stories I have are stories about Dave's generosity, but
Yeah.
it's like with the caveat, but don't ever say this, don't ever repeat this particular instance or this story because he did it for the right reason. And I mean, and you think
Yeah.
the generosity he has is absolutely
Yeah.
astounding, but does it for the right reason? Does it to help people? Does it to not doing it for any self-aggrandizing
No.
tactics of any sort?
Yeah, the stories I know about it are from people, not from like reading about it in the news or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
there was never any attempt to like gain any sort of like a good look about anything. It was always, like you said, for the right reasons. So
Yeah. The other people, by the way, who saw the edge of the kind of icky stuff, were the folks in charge of like many times writers' assistants. Their deal would be to look at the mail, to go through the mail,
oh
and
yeah,
and the mail every once in a while you see something that's a little unsettling or a couple yards across any line of decency of any appropriate things and because they're looking for gold, they're looking for comedy for the mailbag, right? And I mean it's
yeah.
such a stable part of the show. They're looking for these things. Well, when you're sifting through, you're going to see some of this other stuff as well that gets
Well,
obviously gets
he got a lot of threats after that like joke about Sarah Palin's kid was kind of misconstrued. But yeah, I think I was there for that, and yeah, I mean they had to put up. They're still there. They had to put up the what do you got there?
Oh, well, I've got this is to the Letterman podcast. Good luck with this. And there's emphasis on the Shecky would oh God, I miss Shecky. I miss him every day. He would get so mad every once in a while. I would throw it at. He watched every show. He gave me notes. He gave me like the show wouldn't have started without Shecky and his blessing. Every time I had this on the set, he was just, when I met her and told her who I was and got that, he was absolutely astounded by, I would love to have her on the show because that was a huge moment when that happened. In pop culture, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'm sorry, I stepped on your story there. I didn't mean to.
I'm so glad you have that because the background on my phone is me with Sarah Palin, and I'm wearing a no snow, no show T-shirt, which was popularized by Eric Clapton. Would wear that shirt in the 70s. It's a cocaine reference.
Cocaine reference, of course.
Yeah.
I was going to say Sam Kinison. Okay, anyway, yeah.
I'm sure he had the shirt too. But yeah, so she was at a comedy show that a friend of mine was on, and I had heard she might be there. Her nephew might still be a stand-up. He was very funny, actually. I quite enjoyed his stuff. But he was a stand-up in New York, and his politics weren't the same as Sarah Palin's, as far as I could tell. Sure. But so I heard she might be at this show, so I was like, I gotta wear this Coke shirt and try to get a picture with her. And so I went, and she was there, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna happen. And I walked up to her afterward, and I did a little bit of kiss ass. I was like, Governor Palin. I called her. I addressed her as Governor Palin.
I did the exact same thing when I met her. Oh, anyway, keep going. Yep.
And I was like, do you mind if I get a picture? And she was like, oh, sure. But she was like, but what does your shirt mean? Which, like, smart of her to ask.
Oh yeah,
got to give some credit where credit's due there.
Absolutely.
She did say, what does your shirt mean? And I just immediately, I don't know how I was able to do this, but I immediately thought of this. I just said, oh, it's a Game of Thrones reference. Like, which at the time was like, Jon Snow was maybe dead. Like, this was around that time period. So, and she was like, she goes, I knew that. And then got the picture. And she was actually very nice in person, by the way.
To me, she was absolutely a doll. She was so and extremely, like, it's weird. There's certain people that you get in the same vicinity and you can kind of feel it, sort of like there's a charisma that is there and an energy that is there with her that I was like, because I have a picture with her after she had just signed this, and I'm wearing my Late Show with David Letterman for purchase from Rupert's, shirt. But I had got into the conversation with her. I did the same thing with her. I said, Governor Palin, I said I was a great admirer of Senator McCain. And she just went, oh, and immediately just disarmed. And I said, yeah, I just, I didn't agree with everything that he said, but I appreciated his, who he was as a statesman and all of these things. And I just, and so we start talking, and then I see her, and she's looking down at the t-shirt, and she's looking back up at me, and she's looking down at the t-shirt, and I said, I have this photo of you. I'm the host of the Letterman podcast, and I was really hoping that you might give a personalized message to the Letterman podcast.
Oh my God.
That I could maybe put it up in the studio. And she looks at me for a second, and she goes, "You're bold." And I was like, no. She goes, and then she looks at me like with all seriousness, and she goes, "Mike, they're going to throw rocks at you." And I said, no, I don't think so. I said, number one, first off, Canadian. I said, second off, the dust up, that moment to me transcended. It was a moment of pop culture where these things clash, and it was such a cool thing. And I said, one day I would love to have you on the show. And she goes, I'd consider that. And I didn't get her, we didn't get contact info and whatnot. There was people all around and all that. But I do feel like I would love to have her on, because the way we talked, I mean, this. I mean, there's so many times where politicians, they get a soundbite put on them or whatever, but then you meet them in person, and clearly this is a person of gravity and intelligence and all. It was fun. But I'd have her on in a second. And again, that's something where Shecky would be like, don't you dare have her on that show. Don't you? And it was just, I love to rib Shecky with this picture. So anyway, I appreciate you bringing that up, because anytime we can talk about Rick, I appreciate that very, very, very much.
We're just two long hair beard guys who have met Sarah Palin.
That's right. Oh man, we're connected and addressed her as Governor Palin.
I love that you're like, hey, I like this person who's not you. Like, that's said to her to get in. Man, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, you saw yesterday with at Jimmy Carter's funeral, to date when we're recording this.
Yep.
When Trump and Obama are sitting next to each other, and I guess Trump is talking to Obama, and Obama like laughs and smiles, and people are like, "How the hell? What? Like what? How could this happen?" And it's like, I think that's a lot. I saw someone else put this on Twitter, like, to people who are introverts, that might seem odd, but like, I mean, Obama's a politician. Like, maybe he's got a higher threshold for like bullshit and terrible people than most, but like he's going to be personable. He's going to be charming. He's going to be cordial,
Yep.
even with someone that the rest of us would be repulsed by. I mean, he's probably privately repulsed by him.
Oh,
But yeah, but like, it's like you and I we're of similar, we're just like Obama. We can be nice.
Oh, so many similarities.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And again, going back to the Letterman part of it, like I would love when Bill O'Reilly would come and sit down with him, or Rand Paul would come down and sit beside Dave, or some of these bigger personalities, and who would have these opinions, but then okay, wait, we can kind of normalize things as well. Like you talk about podcasts and whatnot, seeing Trump go on Rogan, and they just kind of had a regular discourse for a long period of time. Nothing really outrageous that was, I mean, I'm sure the fact checkers would disagree with what I'm saying here, but
Yeah, right.
but like there's a reason why these people get to the position that they get to, and many times charisma and the things that you're talking about are top of the list of their skill set.
Right. And who knows? Maybe Obama has found some way to like trick Trump into doing like not terrible things. Who knows? Maybe, because like, I mean, that's kind of a thing. There's a philosophy among a lot of like comedy people where it's like, if we're just nice to him for like a week, we could get him to do what we want instead.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would just take Oprah being like, "Hey, Donald, I saw you on that show. You look great. Anyway, could you not criminalize gay marriage this time
Yeah.
around? That'd be great." Like, so maybe that's what's going on. Maybe Obama's playing some 3D chess there. I don't know.
To bring it back to Letterman again, one of the things that I love about my next guest is when he goes long form with somebody and introduces that person to a new audience. He did that. Like, I'm a huge music guy, but I'm also an old man now, and so the threshold for new artists being able to jump over the fence and allow themselves to collect in where my favorite artists are is pretty darn high. It doesn't happen as much. It does happen, but it's tough to do. I am totally a Billie Eilish guy now. I get it. Like, I get her. I get it. And she's in my rotation now, and it's because of her interview that she did with Letterman on My Next Guest. I think the same thing about Kim Kardashian. I was literally, what I knew about Kim Kardashian was what would hit me from the world, which was quite a bit of stuff. It was everywhere. But the moment he had her on and they were talking about stuff, the moment he said, "Hey, who are you voting for?" with her then husband in the audience, that was so funny. And but then talking to her about her going and spending time in the Oval Office with Trump, and her taking this stand saying, "Look, I don't care who it is. If I can go to this place and this place can help the people that I'm advocating for, these wrongfully convicted, or these people who are convicted, the things that she's advocating, she's going to go and do it." And I just thought that was such a cool moment, that it was her saying that about President Trump, because she is, she's got that crazy vortex of people who assume things about her as well. And one thing that Dave is so good at is humanizing these people, and perhaps even creating food for thought.
Yeah. I kind of wish he hadn't humanized a lot of people, but here we are. Uh, I mean, Kanye's was a really interesting episode.
Oh yeah.
It's like you can kind of tell they're editing around some real nutty shit that
Yep.
fucker's saying. It's like Jesus. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure all of the guy, like I'm sure Stern and Letterman probably have like weird regrets about how often they would have Donald Trump on, and like helped build him to what, without them, you definitely don't have him getting The Apprentice
Mhm.
and then what ended up being way worse than The Apprentice, his presidency. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Like it's
Which one
tough
got
to
higher ratings?
yeah. Well, he hasn't broken 50% yet with politics. So, but yeah, I mean, it's
I think
tough.
Seth Meyers is the guy who gets the blame. I think we've all collectively agreed that if it wasn't for him at the correspondence dinner.
Yeah, yeah. That's insane, by the way. Like that's insane that is what happened. That this is the bizarre world that we live in. Man.
It sure is. It sure is a very, very strong argument for the idea that we're in a simulation of some sort, because it's like it's some of these things that happen are you can't write this stuff.
No.
We had
Calling it the Gulf of America, like invading Greenland. Like, what are we even doing anymore? Seth Meyers doing that, and then Jimmy Fallon playing with his hair. It's all those NBC bastards, I tell you. And then his show was on NBC. Stick with CBS, folks.
Yeah, CBS, the Tiffany Network. I This is so like oh man, next time I'm in New York, I want to hang, and I want to come to one of your shows. I want to you're again, I've used this phrase a lot with some of my previous guests at this point, brother from another mother. There's no question about that. Are there any other Letterman memories that you thought about for today that we didn't get to that you want to throw out there, or are we going to save them for maybe the next time where I have you and maybe one of your cohorts on here and just let you guys go?
Well, actually, all right. I'll still save some. But so there was, and this maybe isn't the one to end on, but it's the one we're going to end on.
All right.
So there was this guy when I started working there. There was this homeless guy who was like just kind of lived around there, or actually maybe he was just always walking around and saying like kind of yelling at people, and he just
It was
kind
a
of
radio man, was it?
maybe
Anyway.
it's going. So no, maybe it is. So like when I started there, he was clearly getting his clothes from, like a shelter or something, like donated clothes. And it was all like he had like Yankees stuff. He was always wearing Yankees stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess before I started working there, it was around when Obama won his first election, it was like 2009. So like before then he was always just wearing Obama gear, so they called it everyone's nickname for him was Obama Man. That's what like everyone called this guy. And so, but by the time I started, he was no longer wearing Obama gear, and he happened to be black. And I'm like, wow, my new coworkers are racist and like not creative ones either. They're just like this black guy. We call him Obama Man. Like, what? But then I found out why they called him
Hooray
Obama
for
Man.
context.
Yeah. This makes sense now. Okay, you guys are not terrible people as I thought. No wonder they got Trump on all the damn time. But they so one time I'm standing there at the door as they're leading all the audience members in, and I'm just supposed to stand there to make sure like everyone has a ticket and whatever.
Yeah.
And they're walking by pretty fast, and Obama Man has just decided to stand there next to me for some reason, and he's calling every one of them a pussy. Even as they go by, he's just like pussy, 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 and they're looking at me confused, like, is this part of the show? Is this like some bit that is happening? Oh man, Obama Man. I hope he's still around and doing okay. He was quite an entertaining like street character from that time period. But yeah, he would just say the weirdest things. He would just walk around and be like, he would just say the Yankees, which like the Yankees, and also he would say Obama too, just like Obama. Like it was the weirdest. I never understood what the hell was going on with that guy. But one of the like just, I don't think that makes anyone's book about Late Show.
Yeah, but the characters who were around, the characters who were, it attracted characters of all ilks, of all sorts, of every level and everything you can think of. we are gonna talk about one other individual, because I believe that you'll have something when I say this, because I finish every show talking about, I talk about it in the intros as well, and it goes, it's no secret that the Letterman podcast has only one sponsor. It is intentionally like this, because when he offered it, it was too good to be true, and he's become a good friend. The only sponsor of the Letterman podcast is hello-deli.com. It used to be the Hello Deli, and then Rupert sold the deli last year. Now it's hello-deli.com, the only place, one of the only places that you can get official Late Show with David Letterman merchandise. Worldwide Pants has their own store now, which is also great. But Rupert is just, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. I assume you've got a Rupert story.
So I don't, sadly.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he was always very nice, but I don't have anything, like, nothing crazy happened with Rupert.
Well,
I would just
that's the thing about Rupert. Nothing crazy did. He was kind of even keel. He was who he was for you guys.
I would occasionally just go into his store to get like a coffee. Was just about it. And like, I was always starstruck by him. Still, like, even though, like, you know, I would see him and be like, "Holy shit, Rupert!" And he's just trying to sell a cup of coffee, man. Like, he didn't care. Like, he was just a nice guy, and like, but yeah, nothing too crazy with Rupert.
His girlfriend Irene and I are tight, and they had just spent some time in Greece. I can say this now because they're home and all that, but they go to Greece, to this little island, they've invited Candy and I to come and hang out with them this summer, and literally the process of it is like, it's a 24-hour deal to be able to get to this little island in Greece where she has a house, and they hang out, and it's just this beautiful piece of heaven on earth. So they do this journey, and they finally get there, and they go to this local eatery on the island, and one of the first things that happens is there's an Australian person that's like, "I think that's Rupert G. That's right there."
Oh, that's so funny. The show was so popular in Australia, as you know, like, and so we'd be working box office, and these like Australians would come in and just be like in love with what was going on. You know, they're just like such huge fans. It was so funny. And I guess what it was is that was like one of the American shows they got there.
Yeah.
Like, so it was just someone else was like, you know what, the Letterman will be on in Australia, and like that just, it created this entire section of the fan base that was always such an intense, like they had such an intensity, like, and you couldn't have too many in the audience or it'd be out of control. You know, you really had to be, all right, we have like 30 Australians.
We're gonna separate them a little bit. We're gonna
Can't have too many of you fucking people in here, you know, because they've always had a few to drink before they show up too. I don't want to generalize at people, but
no,
the Australians, they're a fun bunch, you know, so they were always.
That's the thing about being Canadian. That's why I like about being Canadian. We blend in a little bit better.
Yeah.
Eric, this has been so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for having me, man. I really genuinely appreciate it. It was fun,
man. And hopefully it's the first of many. I want to get into your your friend group when it comes to these guys. I'd love to have you and maybe some of the other members on, or definitely some of the other members of the group on. You know, this is what keeps that spirit alive, and it's so good talking about this stuff. Talking Schmidt is the podcast.
Yes, sir. Talking Schmidt's a podcast. Live Snakes is the show, is the stand-up show, and so that's going to be January 30th. In January, it's a monthly, and February 27th, and then starting in March, it's every first Thursday of the month at 9.
Yeah.
Wow. Almost forgot the start time, man. It's 9 o'clock. And my friend Greg Burmeister does music, and he was a page as well, but he does music. He does live musical intros. I didn't get the bottom. There we go. There
you go. People get played on and played off.
Yeah. I had to get the hand strumming there. But yeah, so he does that, which is super fun. And and then you can find me on Instagram at Talking Schmidt, and then Twitter, the same thing. So which I'm still calling it Twitter.
Yeah, no, the X, the Twitter, whatever. Do you have a regular play on, play off music when you go up?
I do Ramones, Blitzkrieg Bop.
Oh, fantastic.
That's a fun one to walk on and off stage too. So that's my go-to. Even though my favorite of their songs, I think, is Rockaway Beach. Actually, that's their record right there over my shoulder.
There we go. Right on.
Got the vinyl copy of that. Hard to find, by the way. Got it. Anyway, yes, thank you so much, Mike. Really, genuinely appreciate it, man.
Oh man, so much fun. You know what? I'll do the outro right here because we've covered everything, including Rupert and all that. This is exactly why we do the show. Eric, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Thank you for being a part of this. You're a piece of the puzzle of this amazing tapestry that we know and love of the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and Company. This has been another episode of the Letterman Podcast with Mike Chisholm. Coincidentally, I am Mike Chisholm. Thank you and good night.
Overcoat and underpants.